Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's additional support session on completing our combined operating budget and reserve disbursement form. This session is part of our ongoing effort to support the affordable housing sponsors in meeting compliance requirements with more clarity and with confidence. I am Christina Green, the Assistant Deputy Director of multifamily programs here at CalHFA, and I'm joined today by my wonderful colleagues, Manna Mahill and Hatran Moore and Bobby Angelo. We're excited to walk you through the form, highlighting common errors and offering practical guidance with these forms, especially for those of you who have never submitted these forms. This is the first time, or who've had questions in the past. Next slide. So here we are. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. Whether you're new to submitting this form, the budget and the reserve disbursement form, or just looking for clarification, this webinar is here to support you. Our goal today is to walk you through each section of the combined forms, explain the why behind the forms, and give you practical guidance through these forms. Share common errors to avoid, and also to answer questions so you feel confident and supported. We truly appreciate all the work you do to maintain compliance on your developments and all the quality reportings that you do. So let's take a moment to go over the purpose of today's session. First, we're going to walk through the combined operating budget and then the reserve disbursement form step by step. We'll explain what each section is asking for and what the information and why the information actually matters and how to complete them accurately. Second, we'll provide additional guidance for first-time users. If you've never submitted the combined form before, or if you're still trying to get used to these forms, this webinar we're hoping will help kind of simplify the process for you. And finally, we're here to answer any outstanding questions. We'll also highlight common mistakes on these forms and clarify any confusing areas. And we'll also leave time after each presentation of the forms for a live Q&A to ensure that your questions are addressed completely. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at what we're going to be covering today. We'll first start with introduction and housekeeping, where we'll go over some of the format of this webinar, introducing, as we've already introduced ourselves, and also share how you can participate. Then we'll dive into the budget form, walking through it, where we'll provide a step-by-step instructions for completing the combined operating budget section. Next, we'll highlight common budget errors, the most frequent issues we come across, and to give you tips on how to avoid them. After that, we'll move into the reserve disbursement request form. We'll give you guidance on how to accurately complete and submit these forms. We'll also share common errors on the reserve disbursement form and how we can prevent having any type of delays or any denials. And towards the end, we'll also share all the resources and contact information that we have, so you'll know where to go for helpful materials and also who to contact as well. And then, of course, we'll end up closing it out with another live Q&A session to kind of pick up any other lingering questions that weren't covered before. Next slide. So before we dive into the context, let's go over a few of the housekeeping items for reminders to help us get through today. So first, all participants will remain muted throughout this presentation to minimize any background noise. Please use the Q&A function to submit your questions as we go. We'll also have live sessions, so if you raise your hand, someone will select you and you'll come on live to ask your question. The PowerPoint presentation will be recorded and it will also be available on CalHFA's website. And if you have any project-specific questions, we recommend contacting your assigned CalHFA Asset Management Analyst after the webinar by either contacting them through email, or you can submit the question through our general email box at assetmanagement@calhfa.ca.gov. Next slide, please. So one question we have been receiving is why do we have these combined forms with HCD? So the reason why we have the combined forms is to follow the Assembly Bill 2006, which is also known as AB 2006, which requires CalHFA, HCD, and TCAC to align and streamline certain monitoring processes on our developments that are regulated by more than just one of these agencies. So here's what that means for you as the sponsor owner agent. AB 2006 compliance, first and foremost, these combined forms satisfies the legal requirements for dual regulated projects. It reduces duplication. Instead of submitting different budgets to different agencies, sponsors now will submit one standardized form. It also improves consistency. Income, expenses, and reserve data are aligned across all programs, reducing confusion and helping everyone stay on the same page. It also simplifies your submission. This process is designed to minimize the administrative burdens and make things more straightforward for you. This also promotes collaboration within the agencies. With this collaboration, we'll have better coordination, making reviews and approvals a lot more efficient, and not just for your side, but also our side as well. This streamlining approach benefits everyone involved, and we're really excited to move forward with this bill. Next slide, please.
Okay, now I'm going to go over the step-by-step guidance and provide step-by-step guidance on completing the combined operating budget section. So we're going to start here let's move to the form itself. We're going to start on tab number 1. This is the operating budget instructions. So here are a few key things to remember when working with the form. First, the yellow tabs and fields. These yellow tabs and fields are required for sponsor completion. These are the sections you will fill out on the sponsor side. So make sure every yellow highlighted field is complete before submission. Then there are green tabs. These green tabs and fields are for CalHFA staff use only. Please do not modify or enter anything on these tabs. They are used internally to complete our review process. Orange tabs are specific to HCD regulated projects that don't require audited financials. If your project is CalHFA only, you can disregard these tabs entirely. And finally, once your budget form is complete, please submit it to your assigned CalHFA Asset Management Analyst. If you're unsure on who that is, and if you want to be safe, you can also email it directly to assetmanagement@calhfa.california.gov. Next slide, please. So next, let's go to tab 2 on the budget form. This is covering the checklist and certification section for the combined budget form. Here are the key fields you need to complete on this tab. The reporting period. Make sure to enter the correct fiscal year that the budget applies to. The project name. Please make sure you use the full official name of the development as listed in your project documentation. The CalHFA property number. This helps us match your submission to the correct development, so it's essential that the number is accurate. The number of assisted units, only enter the number of COSER-funded units here for MHSA or SNP developments. If this does not apply to you or apply to your property, we can go ahead and leave it blank. Next is the total number of units. Enter the total number of residential units in the development, which includes both assisted and unassisted units. And finally, other pro rata, this is for HCD use only. This field is strictly for HCD regulated projects. So if your project is CalHFA only, please leave this blank. Please keep in mind that accurately completing this section ensures we have the correct context when reviewing your budget submission. We're going to move to the next slide. And please move on to tab number 3. We're going to take a closer look at the operating budget section of the form, specifically the 8-month actuals. So on tab 3, you enter all proposed sources of income. And then tab number 4, you quickly move over to tab number 4, you enter the proposed cost of operations. So under the current year 8-month actuals, that's going to be column E on tab number 3 and column F on tab number 4. The numbers reported here should reflect the first 8 months of the current fiscal year. This helps us understand how the project has performed so far and informs us of our review of the proposed budget. We've included here this reference table to help you determine the correct reporting period based on the fiscal year end. So for example, if your fiscal year ends on December 31st, your 8-month actuals should reflect actuals from January 1st through August 30th. If it ends on March 31st, your 8-month actuals will reflect March 1st through October 31st, and so on. So please be sure to report actuals that align with these timeframes to avoid delays in processing your submission. Next slide, please. So we are going to look at tab number 3, again, on the budget form. This focuses on income. So this is where you'll enter all sources of revenue for the property. Here's how the tab is structured. You have lines 1 to 24. This is where you'll enter revenue, all revenue sources. This includes rent, subsidies, and any other income streams. Lines 27 to 39. This is where we will list expenses that help determine cash flow. And lines 41 to 52, this is where you provide any assumptions behind your income projections. For example, if there are seasonal variations or anticipated lease-up activity, that context will belong here. It's very important to itemize other income or miscellaneous income very clearly. Please do not use the word miscellaneous as a standalone label. Instead, provide a breakdown or explanation of what the income includes. This is going to help avoid delays during the review process. Next slide, please. We're going to now move to tab 4 on the budget form. This tab will focus on the anticipated expenses for the upcoming project year. This section will reflect your projected costs for operating the project and the property. Make sure to enter all anticipated expenses, not just major line items. Every cost matters in understanding the financial health of the development. Again, as with income, it's crucial to clearly itemize any entries labeled other expenses or miscellaneous expenses. Please do not simply use the word miscellaneous. Instead, make sure that you include a breakdown or description of what those expenses include. This will help prevent delays and ensure we fully understand your budget assumptions. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we move on, we want to highlight a few common mistakes we often see when reviewing budget submissions. Avoiding these can save time and prevent follow-up requests. First, incorrectly entering the number of assisted or regulated units. This will impact how we bifurcate unassisted units for compliance tracking and subsidy allocation. Next, not separating tenant rent revenue between MHSA and non-MHSA units. This leads to inaccurate income allocations. Similarly, failing to separate subsidy income, such as the COSR, between MHSA and non-MHSA units can also result in compliance issues. We frequently see missing explanations for line item variances greater than or less than 10%. These explanations are required for approval. And finally, we've mentioned before, using vague labels like miscellaneous income or other expenses without any detail will slow down our review. Always provide a breakdown or clear description of what's included. Being mindful of these items during submission will help ensure a smooth and faster review process. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Hatran. At this time, we will pause to respond to some of your questions from our panel. We also have, if you don't have questions right now, we will have some time to review at a later time. So a few ways to participate is you can raise your hand in Zoom and we'll unmute you for a live discussion, or use the chat button and submit your question and I'll read it out loud. Please include your name and organization when asking your question. And just a reminder, this is a great opportunity to ask about income and expense entry, variance explanations, COSR and MHSA unit breakdowns, or common submission errors before we move on to the next session of reserve disbursements. So let's see, I think we have some questions. I think I will read these coming in. I don't see any hands raised at the moment. So I'll go ahead and read what was submitted through our chat.
Yeah, go ahead. Just read the Q&A first because we have folks raising their hands.
Okay, yes. I don't see anybody raising their hand yet. Okay, so let's do the Q&A. First question comes from Yvonne. When we submit the budget, do we need to submit 8 months financials with it?
And that answer is no. You do not need to submit the 8-month financials. We just need the totals in the column on the budget.
Okay. Next question comes in from Maylene. Where is that going again? That might be a question.
And I can help answer that for the 8-month actuals. So if you go to tab number 3 and 4, on tab 3, it's column E. Tab 3, right? Yes, it's column E, and then on tab 4 is column F. So that is where you're going to enter your 8-month actuals based on your fiscal year, based on the reference table that we provided.
Okay, the next question from Anna. The income is 8 months actuals, but is expense also 8-month or full year?
Yes, the income and expense is, you're going to provide 8-month actuals on both.
Okay, next one from Vivian. I do not have a copy of the latest combined operating budget form. How can I obtain it?
Our combined operating budget form can be found on our website, on our CalHFA website, under, multifamily asset management forms. And it is named Combined Operating Budget.
Okay, the next one from Jennifer. If you have, for example, 5 CalHFA restricted units in a 27-unit project, but all 27 units are TCAC restricted, do you put 27 restricted units on the first tab or 5?
I'll answer that one. You would list 5 units. TCAC does not follow a budget. They don't review budgets. It's only CalHFA and HCD. So it's going to be reflected for CalHFA. So please use 5.
Okay, I think that's it for the chat at this time. Now we'll go to, let's see, the questions.
Maylene keeps raising her hand, so let's go ahead and go with her. I'll allow her to talk. So go ahead, Maylene.
Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Now, I just want to reconfirm. I know you mentioned earlier. So if you don't have a combined HCD CalFHA project and you only have a CalFHA, where does the number goes? Where does the contract number goes?
Under, you'll still put it under the on tab. It'll go to tab 2 for me. Please, Mark. So right there, you'll just put in the CalHFA number there on row 5.
Row 5,
Yes,
even if it's not combined with HCD.
correct. So
All right.
for each that you have multiple lines there, so you can put CalHFA on one and then HCD on the other. If it's just CalHFA, you'll just put CalHFA's number there only.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I still ask another follow-up question?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so is this the new form HCD is using moving forward? Because the last form last year doesn't have that 8-month stub. So this is the
Yes.
same one they're using this year, correct?
Correct. And it's on their webpage as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other hands up at this time?
There is a couple more questions in the Q&A.
Okay, let's go back there. Carly is asking, do we still need to submit the COSR request separately?
So I will ask this when you're stating the COSR request, are you talking about the actual disbursement request? If so, then you would submit it with the budget, but on its own separate sheet.
Okay. From Crystal, to confirm, the 8-month actuals need to include the last month of the previous fiscal year.
It should be the first month of the fiscal year and 8 months through. So for December 31st fiscal year end, you would start it for January 1st and you will have it run through to August 30th. If it's March 31st, it will be April 1st to November 30th. For June 30th fiscal year end, you would run it from July 1st to February 28th. And then for a September 30th year end, it will be October 1st through May 31st. And if you have a November 30th fiscal year end, you would run it from December 1st to July 31st.
And thank you, Christina. The next question from Diego, what should we do if there are more miscellaneous expenses or income that exist than spaces offered in the form?
Please add it on a separate sheet and we will include it in the budget.
Okay, and Carly is asking, did any of the CalHFA account numbers change with this new form?
No.
Okay. that might conclude this session of questions.
Oh, there's
Oh,
another one.
There's one more. Yep. Crystal's asking, can we see the slide that has the 8-month actual dates? I believe the fiscal year end March 31st, stated March 1st through October 31st.
Yes, it did, and it has been corrected. And when we post the PowerPoint to our website, it will be corrected on there. It should say April 1st.
Okay, great questions. Let's see, anybody else before we move on? Let's look one more time. Again, if you don't have a question at the moment, we will have a session at the very end that we can circle back to. All right, I think we can, oh, did something else come in? We're good. Okay, so we will move on. We'll resume with the presentation for the reserve disbursements presented by Mana.
Moving on to the reserve disbursement request form. This is where we see some small oversights that require a bit of follow-up and back and forth, which essentially delays our processing turn times. So just a few reminders here. First, submit one form per reserve account, meaning so if you have a development that has replacement reserves as well as operating reserves, and you do need to request funds from both, please utilize separate forms, one for replacement reserve and one for operating reserve on its own. The form itself has a limit of 20 items for 20 items. And if you are requesting, and if your request does have more than 20 line items, please utilize additional form for clarity purposes and tracking. The replacement reserve account must always maintain a minimum balance of $1,000 per unit. Requests that would bring the balance below that $1,000 threshold cannot be approved. Bid requirement compliance is crucial. If your request includes work that exceeds CalHFA's threshold, make sure the proper bids have been obtained and approved in advance. If you are unsure whether your work qualifies, please check the bid policy or reach out to your assigned asset management analyst. When submitting your request, invoices and proof of payment must accompany the request as well. This is not just for the work orders that require bids. This is for any replacement reserve requests. And finally, oops. Sorry, let's try. Finally, please submit your completed request forms to your assigned analyst, or you may also email them directly to assetmanagement@calhfa.ca.gov. Following these steps will help ensure smoother processing and turn times from CalHFA's end. Please move to the next slide. Just a quick recap of the bid requirements. So this is for all developments, excluding CalHFA HUD risk share loans, CalHFA administered project-based Section 8, as well as the PRA 811s, up to $19,999. We do not require any bids. For work orders of $20,000 up to $49,999, one bid must be submitted. And for anything $50,000 and above, we do require 2 bids to be submitted. Guidelines are slightly different for CalHFA HUD risk share and CalHFA administered section-based project project-based Section 8, as well as PRA 811 developments. Bids are not required as long as the work order is less than 10,000. For anything that is 10,000 and more, 3 bids are required. It is important to remember that all bids must be submitted and approved in writing by CalHFA before any work begins. Verbal approvals or assumptions can unfortunately lead to delays or even disallowed costs. So we do strongly recommend that you do confirm before any work begins. When we review our disbursement request, we are checking to make sure the correct number of bids are included and that they match the approved vendor and the amount, and the documentation aligns with our guidelines. If there are change orders, those need to be listed as well. You will want to include the change order amount, the percentage of the original contract it represents, and the date it was approved. So please be sure to submit any, if you do have any change orders, please be sure to follow up and submit those as well. If at any point you are unsure whether a bid is needed or how to document it, please reach out to your assigned CalHFA asset management contact. Next slide, please. Just wanted to highlight some common mistakes here as well. Again, this does require multiple follow-up from our end, and again, in turn, it does delay processing on our end. Some of the common mistakes that we do see on our end is the total number of units is not entered, and this isn't only just whether they're restricted or not. This is total number of the development units. It is critical because we do use it to calculate the required per unit minimum reserve balance, and without it, we cannot confirm for compliance purposes. We often see the beginning reserve balance is either is submitted or just not entered. We do need to see the starting balance to verify the availability of funds and to process the request. We often see missing CalHFA property number or the loan number itself. Again, this will slow down the process and require us to either follow up and get the correct loan number or do research on our end. Again, that also impacts our turn times. We often get the reserve form submitted as a PDF. So you may have internal processes that require a PDF, but please be sure to submit the Excel version as well. We do make notes and we do some tracking on it on our end. And when we do receive just a PDF, we will, again, follow up and request that you submit the Excel format as well. Missing authorized signature. Please note the form must be signed by the appropriate property owner or authorized signer. Without that signature, we will not process the request. Another item that we see is similar work performed across multiple units without prior bid approval. This does raise a red flag and it appears as an attempt to bypass the bid thresholds. For example, we may see unit 10 carpet replaced 1 week, unit 15 carpet replaced the following week, so on and so forth. And we'll have, a cost that adds up to or above the bid requirements. Therefore, we do look for those, and we will ask for bids as we do start to see more of these line items on the form. And making sure all these elements are completed and accurate will help us review your request quickly and help us efficiently process your request as well. Next slide, please.
Okay, thank you, Mana. Again, we will take a pause and go over some questions regarding the reserve disbursement form and the process. Again, you can participate in two ways: raise your hand via the Zoom platform and using the chat button. Please include your name and organization when asking your questions. And just a reminder that this is the perfect time to ask about bid requirements, eligible expenses, reserve balance policies, or submission process before we close out this webinar. All right, let's see if we have any current questions through chat. All right, first question from Diego. Did we cover what to do if there are more than the allotted spaces for the itemizations?
Yes. Please use an additional form. So if there's 20 line items on the form itself, so if you have more than 20, if it's 21, 30, please use an additional form.
Okay, another question. Do we have to use the combined form if it is only for HCD?
This is the form that will be utilized going forward. So whether it's HCD only or if it's CalHFA and HCD, this is the one form that will be utilized going forward. And so if it does not have any HCD involvement, you will simply list the CalHFA property. And if it does have CalHFA and HCD, please be sure to list both of the property number and the HCD contact number.
Thank you. Question from Joseph. Are the bid thresholds the same for HCD?
Yes, they are.
I also wanted to add in, I'm sorry, I answered a question too quickly, but I wanted to read it out loud for everyone. Mary Doris had a question if HCD is also implementing this reserve disbursement request as of now. And the answer is yes, HCD is also implementing this reserve disbursement request.
Hey,
Hand raised.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can someone repeat what they just said?
That was me. I saw somebody raise their hand, but it looks like they took it down.
Yes, okay. All right, good catch. Carly has a question. So we are required to get 3 bids for carpet replacement, even if the jobs are separate instances. For example, 10 units had $1,000. So that the math on that would be 10 times 1,000 equals 10,000 carpet replacement over the course of the year.
No. So what I was referring to is taking the same example. Let's say rather than happening over the course of a year, it happens over the course of a month and a half or so. So at that was a reference, not necessarily over the year. So if you do have, $1,000 in carpet replacement cost allotted to, different units over the year, that is understandable. However, what we're seeing is work being completed 1 week, and then in the following week and the following week. That is what the reference was to, not necessarily over the course of the year.
And to clarify it just a little bit more, it's usually on the same invoice, so it means it happened at that same time. And we per our guidelines and our policy, if the work is done by a single vendor and it's invoiced on one invoice and it's over that threshold, we have to have the bids required. Not if it was done like 1 week and then next week it's a totally different invoice, then that's different. But when it's invoiced at the same time, we have to abide by our policy and follow our bid thresholds.
Okay, let's go to the next question from Jennifer. The limit to trigger the bid requirement, is this per item or all items combined that you are requesting withdrawal for?
It is going to be for the specific job being done. For example, you need to get a fire door replaced, and that fire door is over the $10,000 for a HUD share. You'd have to get bids for that. So it's not for the entire, like if you have multiple items that need to be done, but they're separate from an actual job, then it's not required. It's only if it pertains to an actual job, like roof replacements, like large capital improvement items, large replacement reserve items.
Okay. Joe is asking, what is the time threshold of spreading out costs for upgrades on multiple units or site-wide changes? For example, if we are upgrading from fluorescent to LED lights for the entire building over time instead of all at once.
There isn't a per se time threshold. If you're like, for your example, the fluorescents to LED lights, if you're doing it throughout the year or throughout multiple months and it's invoiced separately and it's under the threshold, a bid is not required. If it is being done throughout the year and it's invoiced all at once, a bid is going to need to be required. Please let me know if that clarified it.
Okay, we have 2 questions from Diego. I'll read the first one and get the response, and we'll go to the second one. Does the form allow us to designate if this is a request for funding, since the amount might not be something the project can cash flow? An example would be a large emergency repair such as elevator or other type of repair.
So let me just ask you this question, Diego, and you can respond in the chat. When you say designated item for request for funding for one particular item, is it just for emergencies? Because emergencies are handled differently. Bids are only required if it's a planned improvement or replacement. If it's an emergency, there's always exceptions on the emergency. If you had the elevator went out, cable busted or something like that, and you needed somebody to come out immediately, we understand that a bid is not going to be conducive to that situation. So we wouldn't expect you to get a bid. If a pipe ends up bursting underground and you needed to get that pipe repaired immediately, we understand a bid is not required. Is not going to be required because it's an emergency. So if you end up putting it in on your disbursement request, always note that it's an emergency, and we do recommend, if it is an emergency, that you notify your analyst that there was an emergency done, emergency repair done on the project. So when your request comes in, there will be no delay in getting that reimbursed to you.
Next question from Diego. In response to following your policy and bid thresholds, this could create some issues and possibly burn bridges with vendors. If we're constantly required to ask for bids, they won't be getting the job for.
We understand, Diego, that this process can be cumbersome to some vendors. You can discuss that with your analyst. If you start running into delays of getting bids, just reach out to your analyst and then we can see what we can do to assist.
Okay, the next question. On requests, we are required to send in bids. Do we send in the form for approval with quotes, then submit again with invoice and proof of payment?
So with bids, you'll just submit the bid, the contract, that the proposed contracts, and that's it. You don't need to submit invoices or proof of payment when you're submitting bids. It's just to get our approval to move forward with the work.
Okay, then we have a follow-up question with Diego regarding emergencies. Let's eliminate emergency as an example. The HUD 9250 form would allow for request for funding if like a large repair is required. So for example, the lender, HUD, any agency is requiring the gates be replaced or cameras updated, but the project can't fund it.
So let me cover it in two places. If it is a required replacements or improvements, if it was from our agency, we would already know that and we'd already have it in our foresight to know that you're going to need to get that approved. It seems to me your question is, if the property can't fund it, do you allow advancements for work to be done? Is that what you're referring to, Diego? I'm going to wait to see when if he answers my question.
Yes, that is what he's referring to.
Okay. All right.
Diego, I gave you the ability to talk. You can go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hi there.
Hi, Diego.
So there's some of the projects are combo. So you either have lenders, investors, or HUD themselves coming after a MOR or a REAC that might, provide guidance or require repairs. So in the cases where the project can't cash flow it, I wanted to know the 9250 allows for us to designate that, hey, this is for an advance. Is that something that is designated on the CalHFA form? Just to clarify.
So if you're requesting, well, first, let me start off. If you have an approved 9250 from HUD, and it is a project-based Section 8 or a HUD risk share that requires the 9250, CalHFA will honor that 9250 and follow HUD's request.
Okay.
If it's not, if you're not required to submit a 9250, if it's not a HUD restricted property, you can always reach out to your analyst and letting them know, hey, I have this this bid or this work that needs to be done. We don't have the funds for it. There are a couple of things that CalHFA will do, review like current monthly financial statement or current 3-month financial statement to see exactly where the issue is. And we can do an advancement of up to 30% to at least get the work started. And we can do incremental advances as the work progresses. But you would have to have really good communication with your analyst to make sure that you can receive the information needed and the funding needed as well. Okay.
Yeah, that helps. Can I add one more question to that?
Of course.
So in our experience, right, there's agencies or lenders who have to come in the pecking order of who you have to go for approval. So using LHD and your lender as one. So if this was a HUD risk share or if this was a primary, like where the funds are held at CalHFA, where in that pecking order would you CalHFA fall? Because if we go to HUD with the 9250 and get that approved before coming to you, doesn't that make this form moot based off
you would still need to complete our form. Even if you have an approved 9250, you will still need to complete our form for our files.
Okay.
So as in regards to the pecking order, when it comes to CalHFA and HCD, if we're both involved in the project. CalHFA has the senior approval to that. Actually, we'll have the final approval in the replacement reserve or any disbursement that CalHFA is involved in. If we hold the funds, we automatically have the final approval. If, say, the borrower or another lender holds the funds, if you submit their approval, you would still need to submit our form so we can have it for our files and we would move forward with the approval.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Going back to the question about sending bids for approval to do work, do we have to send in the form with it?
No, you do not need to send in the form with it. What you would do is you'll contact your analyst, you'll attach all of the bids and let them know that these are the bids for this work. We'll do our review and our checks and balances and then respond to you via email, whether it's been approved or not. In your request for bids, please indicate which vendor you have selected so we know which one you prefer and we'll try to make that selection possible. But you do not need to submit the form. The form is only when you're ready to withdraw funds from that reserve.
Okay. Mary is asking, what if 30% advance is not enough? How frequently could the incremental advances occur and for what percentage?
So Mary, this is going to be on a case-by-case situation. So like I said, when we are told that you don't have enough to cover the costs, we will look at the financials, the current, most likely the 3 most current financials to see financially where the property stands to determine how much of an advance it goes to. Normally it goes up to 30%, but there are times when it's something fairly large that we've allowed more than that. But it will be taken care of it will be addressed on a case-by-case situation.
Okay. Let's see. I don't see any other questions at the moment. Are there any hands raised that I don't see?
I don't see any.
Okay, well, again, we will have a time to go over a few more questions before the webinar is over. So at this time, I think we can resume with the presentation and I'll hand it over to Christina.
Okay. So we want to make sure that you all know where to find the tools and the support that you need moving forward. So as said before, all the forms that we discussed today is on our webpage and you can follow it through to CalHFA Asset Management Forms, to our handbook and resource page. We recommend that you download the most current version each time you submit because the templates can periodically be updated without notification. And if you have any general questions and you're not sure who your assigned analyst is, you can always email assetmanagement@calhfa.ca.gov, and that question will be forwarded to your analyst. So just want to let you know we're here to support you and we want to make sure that your submission goes as smoothly as possible. Next slide, please. So to wrap things up, here are some key next steps. First, review your combined budgets and reserve request forms carefully before you submit them. Taking time to double check the details can help avoid processing delays. Second, avoid some of the common mistakes that we went over, like using our common mistakes as a checklist, and yeah, just using that to kind of help you to avoid some of the mistakes. And then finally, submit your forms to your assigned analyst or email them to the general email box. Like I said, we're here to support you and try to make this as efficient as possible. Next slide, please. So just to let you know, the PowerPoint and this webinar, well, the webinar is being recorded, so it will be posted on our website. And the PowerPoint will also be there as well. And you'll also be able to access our forms. We do have handbooks there and other templates on our website. And again, please contact your analyst directly or send your questions via email to the asset management general email box. So before we conclude, I want to give everybody an opportunity one more time to ask any other questions, whether through the chat or live, before we conclude today's webinar. I don't see any hand. I raised my hand. Sorry, you guys. Is there any hands at all? Okay. I don't see anything. Well, then this will bring us to the end of our session today. And I hope we're able to clarify any questions that you might have. And I hope that these resources will help you while you're completing your forms. Again, we're here to assist you. So if you have any additional questions, just feel free to reach out to us. Collaboration is key to getting everything done smoothly and efficiently. We really, truly appreciate your participation today and your ongoing commitment to keep our developments in compliance and have better quality reporting. As always, if you have any questions, we're here to help. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of the day and rest of the week.
Thank you.